Hey everybody, I just wanted to amplify a statement I made a little while ago regarding the idolization of, say, music heroes and that sort of thing. This particular band or that particular person or these people from this particular band from this particular time, all that kind of stuff. That's all great and dandy, and it just, I don't know, it just doesn't fly very well with me. I know a lot of folks think it would be great to be rich and famous and all that. And what they don't understand, I guess, is if you talk to anybody that's rich and famous, generally your problems multiply as your notoriety and wealth move up, and and they become bigger and often much more complex problems because of various things and various people that are involved. So it's not such a grand thing to begin with, but a number that's just one of the reasons why it's silly to idolize music heroes. And I think it's great to take an interest in music and the musicians, in the bands and their history and how things were made and stuff like that. If somebody's going to become obsessed with it, that's great. I think that's more along the lines of a person who wants to become, like, say, a documentarian or a historian of that particular band. That's great for you to have that obsession because you're going to dig a little harder, a little deeper. You're going to watch things and listen to things that other people don't have time to find, and so you'll get all sorts of tidbits and pieces of information from here and there that when you put that stuff together in your reports or your blogs or your video logs, that sort of thing, when you put that stuff together for other folks, they'll have a much better understanding and a better and a bigger picture of the bands or the persons you're talking about. So that's cool for documentarians to have that sort of an obsession. It's sort of not cool to be a fanboy, fangirl kind of thing, but I guess it's okay if somebody doesn't have anything better to do in life. I guess it's all right, you know. And that's one way to spend money and time and give attention to an artist. So that's all fine and dandy. But so the way I look at it is sort of like, you know, to me, it's better for me just to be me. It's sort of like you be you, I'll be me, that kind of thing. My thing is to not put that much time and effort into it. Let's have a project in mind. Uh, but I do like listening. There are certain artists I do like, of course, favor over others. Certain music, and even let's just say on a particular album or series of albums. Um, I could give or take different artists. I'm just always been that way. Like, for instance, let's take Nirvana. That's a band I like a lot. Um, they've long since, they're long since gone for obvious reasons. And what's interesting about that is I listened to the first album. They're a punk rock band, basically. Then you listen to the second album, and everything shifts and changes. They become more accessible, I think. Still punk rock in a lot of the writing and the style, but more accessible. And then by In Utero, by the third album, they've gone off into more territory, different territory. And I'm not sure I like any of them as much as I like the second album, uh, for reasons that are peculiar to me. And even then, I don't like everything off of it. But some folks, just got to play all the tracks on all albums all the time, both sides, everything, whatever. And that's fine if you really do enjoy that. I've always been a little more selective with my music and musical choices, I should say. Just because I like some variety, I like a different set of moods, or even a series of moods. A lot of artists will create a series of moods within a musical construct, such as an album. That's one of the things albums were great for. You could create an entire sweep of emotion or story, uh, events, if you were musical events, and bring the listener through that during the course of the album or the CD. That's kind of lost now with everything playing on a single shuffle. It's sort of a lost art unless you seek it out. And I encourage you to do so. You might learn some things about some of these artists, especially some of the older artists, of how they crafted an album. It wasn't just a bunch of songs stuck together, as some people believe. Hardly. Quite a bit of work goes into putting an actual album together. So things like that. To my mind, it's silly to idolize somebody because they spend their waking hours doing something that the average person doesn't have time or inclination to do. That's kind of silly. So, like if I'm a musician, do I go and spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day at a welding shop doing stuff for, customers or clients or people or whatever? No, I don't. Should I idolize welders? Well, if I have something at my house or my estate that needs to be welded, I'm going to call a welder. When you want to listen to some music, you go out and you find musicians to listen to, don't you? So that's just kind of how it works. I see it as a mutual thing, and this is why I don't do the idolization route. The other thing is, early on in my musical journeys, I was reading a bit about Bob Dylan. I liked his lyrics. He always was quite a good lyricist. A singing voice, not so much. Musical compositions were pretty good, pretty darn good to great. And again, I didn't like everything he did, but if you had to put him up against other writers, I'd say he was a world-class writer in terms of lyrics and such. So, hey guys. Anyway, but one of Bob Dylan's, somebody just stopped to, I guess, nod and wave at me. I don't know who it was. But one of the things I got from Bob Dylan's interviews was he basically just said not to have any heroes. And I took that as to mean just don't idolize people, because everybody will eventually let you down. We're all fragile and fake in our own ways and basically just human. We're all going to fail at certain things at certain times. So if you put your musicians or your heroes on a pedestal, you are probably just setting yourself up for disappointment at some time in the future, because they are just people like us after all, So the other point I wanted to make is that, you evolve, I evolve, people evolve, our feelings and thoughts about certain things, the way we react towards certain things, that evolves over time. Music evolves. Musicians, would hope would evolve, not necessarily with the times. We kind of look to musicians to give us sort of a foil or maybe a lens to look at a particular time through. It's one of the things that the arts are really good for, is to give us a lens, a different perspective on what we may be experiencing in our everyday life, because there is a different perspective out there. There's a lot. I mean, I'm sitting here watching people driving by and walking by and riding by on bicycles and stuff, and every one of these people has a slightly different perspective, if not wildly different than mine. So why shouldn't our perspectives be different? There's certain things we may all more or less agree on, but it's the whole point of the arts, is to give us different lenses to view the world from. So in the other, getting back to the we're all just people, if I could bring it back to sort of the Nirvana argument here about not having heroes. So Kurt's supposed to be this young, raging counterculture, anti-hero, anti-establishment. And that's all great. He did pretty much all of that, I guess, while he was alive. Then Kurt dies. So he did all the work, and she gets all the money. Now, can you think of a more quintessentially middle American story than that? And that's the irony. It's like, in the end, maybe we don't get a choice over all this, of all these things. So it's kind of interesting. The other example I wanted to bring up was Paul McCartney. A lot of people go on about Paul McCartney. Well, Paul's a vegan, and he doesn't hesitate to tell all the stagehands that work on his shows that. And I was a vegetarian and vegan for about 25 years in my life. I was never very doctrinal about it. It wasn't like my religion or anything, but apparently Paul has some issues with this, and he can't help but proselytize his veganism to the stagehands and the backstage workers, which I think is that's an atrocious personality trait, if you ask me. It's a little bit like wanting to be a dictator just because you've got a name, in the industry and people want to work your shows. All of a sudden you get to tell them how to live and how to eat and everything else. It's like, that's kind of silly. Paul, you might want to rethink that. Just saying, your music's too good for that. That's sort of an attitude to be muddying up. So anyway, we'll just leave it at that. I just wanted to add this as an added perspective. It's not that I hate any particular bands, and all the bands I say that I think are criminally overrated, I do like their music, but it's not like they wrote the best music that could ever be written. That was a long time ago. These bands I was talking about were 50 years ago and change. And there's great music being written today. Get out and listen to it. Find some of it. That's your job. Peace.